Hey everybody, it's Master Gallengeist here, bringing you my review of Tony Stark Iron Man issue 14. And this was a really great issue. There were a lot of different storylines going on, but they all connected very well, and I just really liked where it started setting us up and getting the story kind of moving forward. So we start off and we see that Tony is talking to himself and that he had told Carol that he couldn't be her sponsor for AA anymore because of what happened in The Escape and how he's explaining it to her. But evidently, his bright idea was to erase his memory of that event and deal with his relapse that way. A very Tony Stark thing to do, but of course, there will be Tony Stark repercussions for it. So, we see that he's getting the lowdown and information from a recording of himself, and it's funny because he's even commenting on how kind of asshole-ish and smug he's acting like that, and it's just holy crap. And of course, Carol's pissed off about this, and he's like, "Hey, if you ever need anything, here's this hard drive with all this information, and it'll get you up to speed on any pertinence that you need to know." Because he's like, "Well, if you're pretty much digital and you've got digital memories, just leak the damn things." It sounds simple, but it leads to some bad stuff because immediately the hard drive's gone. I'm like, what the hell? Cable is even eventually able to kind of find the person in the stealth suit, and it is Spymaster. And of course, he like throws a knife at her to kind of shock her. And of course, there's a pun involved. Being like, to charge you for it. It's like, okay, I'm all right with puns, and this one was well executed. I'm like, very good. So of course they got him, and they're trying to figure out what. Well, they don't have him captured, but they're like, okay, he's here. What are we gonna do? It's like we gotta stop him before he gets to like the Manticore, and of course he does, and he takes his joyride on it. And he's like, Tony's like, hey, he doesn't have the passcodes. We're fine. It's like, oh, would you have had those 2 weeks ago? I just love how fucking snarky Spymaster is in this. He's just like, hey, I kind of got my own shit. So Tony and Carol are flying off and having to deal with that. And by the way, I love the art in this issue, and I like Tony's armor in here. It's kind of reminiscent of kind of the old bulkier kind of armor mixed with the Extremis armor. I'm like, all right, I can deal with that. I like seeing different kinds of suits brought out for different occasions, and they're going off on that. Another storyline that we get is Arno dealing with what information he's gleaned from the escape. And we see that throughout different parts of the issue, but to condense it, he's seeing what has happened in certain history, talking about how Howard brought back Maria as the Mistress program, and of course created a copy of himself into the Arsenal armor that fought the Avengers. We go further in, and Tony had to deal with them and decided to destroy them. But of course he comes back and brings them all together. Arno, of course, commenting on the sentimental weaknesses of Tony. And then he's brought even further up to speed with what happened in the escape and how he talked about how he was the decoy for Arno and how he destroyed Maria and Howard in the escape. And it's like, wow, you just killed our parents to satisfy your own ego. And it's like, no. He was in a bad situation in there, and they were trying to capture him and change who he was. It was an act of self-preservation, but of course Arno doesn't see that or read into that context. He wants to be validated with what he's seen and what he is learning about the escape and what Tony has done killing his parents again and why he did it. We then leave it off at the end of why he was doing this. We see him talking to Friday about, okay, are these copies of my parents just as real as the real ones? Do they deserve corporeal form? And that's why I put him in the escape. And this is really kind of, it gives another kind of texture to Arno as he's like trying to figure out what's going on with this. Arno is a really interesting character, and I'm really liking what they've been doing with him in this run. He has been more tilting towards the villain, but more in a villain like Doctor Doom's sense, where he will do whatever he needs to for what he sees as his gain and what he sees as right. So we'll have to see how that shakes out and applies to what stuff's going on with Tony. of course, that then meets up with Yocasta's part at the end, where she like went on a kind of shopping date with Janet, which was kind of nice, and seeing how she talked about how she was naked before, but actually like putting together uh, ensembles and all that. And just saying like, yeah, you probably got that from me. And then she's trying to make small talk about, hey, Tony's kind of like a biological simulation of the real Tony Stark, kind of having a little bit more in common. She's trying to bridge that gap. But of course, Yocasta blames Tony for Friday's death, which I still think is an unfair assessment. Tony did not upload Friday inherently and expressly to kill her. And he did not know the strength and amount of control that his mother's AI program had. And of course, it was his mother's AI program that was the one that killed Friday. I don't mind her having issues with how Tony has dealt with like AI and artificial beings, but I'm more like, no, he did not kill Friday. He really needed someone to help him out in that instance, and he didn't like having to put Friday in his suit, and he didn't want to have Friday die like that, but there were only certain things that could happen at a certain point. I'm like, okay, we'll have to see if that gets brought up into a kind of conversation, because I'm more like, I understand your robo-ethics here, but you're kind of hitting a little bit too hard on it. So, of course, she's kind of dealing with that. Her and Aaron are hanging out at the robot bar, and actually the Bane robots, well, androids come in, and they are pretty much look human, and they're getting like some shit from some people, and of course Yocasta goes in, hey, screw that, let him in here, don't be classist kind of shit. And then one of the guys, Buckaman, was like, hey, can you get us Vision's like autographs? She's like, I don't think JPEG. And Aaron, of course, is getting more and more kind of pretty much racist against humans. But of course, Yocasta's hitting back at him, hey, you used the flesh tone as well. And he's like, damn, low blow, man. And she, of course, brings up that she's thinking about doing upgrades and everything. And of course, Aaron's trying to straddle that line of, you're perfect the way you are, but minor upgrades would be cool. And he's really fixated on boot jets. I'm like, make yourself some boot jets, man. Fine, I got you. But of course, this isn't the way that Yocasta's dealing. She kind of is trying to become more human. Now, granted, I don't think she wants to go completely human, but that synergistic effect of the best focus of tech and human, which incidentally enough is something that Tony has been striving for as well. Even though Aaron pulls up the fact that the Iron Man armor is essentially like, you just got a meat bag in there, so it should just more be a robot to be better. But she comes to Banetronics at the end and wants to be made more human, like what she had seen from the Banetronics androids and all that. So Bane brings her into Arno, and Arno's like, hey, you came to the right start for this. And that's where the issue ends, at least on that note. The other part where we see Tony going after, of course, Spy Master, Carol and him have to deal with all kinds of stuff as they start getting into populated areas. Tony tries to protect the civilians at first, but of course they're not able to do it completely effectively because Spy Master is able to use the codes and try and take over his armor. Of course, that leads to some funny conversation as Carol's trying to make sure that she neutralizes him as much as possible without killing him, and him kind of like bringing up what happened in Civil War II was pretty funny. It's not really easy trying to have these two characters together, all with what happened with Civil War II, but I like this issue in kind of burying that. So they're continuing the fight. Tony has reworked his armor security system, but of course we see that Spy Master has gotten control of all of his other armors, as Andy is like walking around with someone from Stark Unlimited, like, hey, I'm glad that you stayed on board even though Amanda wasn't. I kind of want to help the world with technology, and sometimes sacrifices have to be made as the armors come out and everything, and they're dealing with that whole rationale, and of course Carol is just beating in, hey, this is why you don't do this shit. You have to handle this shit. I'm like, Yeah, I know. Okay, we just gotta take out the Manticore. It's like staking that vampire. She, of course, brings up spoilers with Game of Thrones, and Tony's like, I haven't seen it yet! Or did I? And she's like, that's what happens when you do this. So I kind of liked that little Game of Thrones thing thrown in there. But Tony does get up in there, take it out, and he's like, I need this, and takes out Spy Master. The armors go offline. It's like, nice. And he puts it all together, and he knows that he has to take it one day at a time and all that, and that Carol says that her and everybody else is going to be there for you and all that. And then they start thinking about, hey, I had the idea and I did this like 3 hours ago. Who would be able to do that? Banetronics. So Bane's being built back up and, well, not built back up, but being shown to be a big thorn in Tony's side and is going to have to be dealt with more effectively. But he's going to have to deal with Arno kind of helping them out as well. So that's going to be cool to see. And I kind of really liked how this dealt with all the stuff going on because he also had to got up to speed with the war realms and all that. And it just worked very well to kind of come off those kind of things that we've had the last couple of issues and just kind of set us up for the kind of next arc going forward. So those are my opinions on the issue. Tell me what you guys think in the comments below. If you liked it, if you didn't like it, if you agree with me, if you disagree with me. Also like and subscribe, and I hope you have a good day.